I just made some coffee in my little coffee pot. Grab a seat, gather around. If you're new to Brain Tech Support Live, we talk about how to have a human brain. And that involves having all of the human experiences that can come along with it. And seeing that's really part of living our lives, that we can have wrong feelings, we can have scary thoughts, we can have really big good feelings too, and not have to let those take over our lives or send us off reeling into ruminating. It's challenging having a brain, right? I was last, what I guess it would be 2 weeks ago now, where we didn't do a Brain Tech Support Live. That's because I was just finishing up at a meditation retreat. So, Zen retreat at Upaya Zen Center in New Mexico. And it was an excellent, like really well run, well supported, well taught meditation retreat. We did a lot of sitting. Usually, it would roughly be around 6 hours ish of meditation a day. If we include that, we would often do like a 10-minute walking meditation break after some sitting. And it's interesting to see how the brain changes over a week. So we're doing a week silent sitting, you're not doing anything in your head when you're meditating. And at first, I I was sharing about this on the Instagram subscriber channel. I made a little cartoon to explain how it goes. And at first, when you sit to meditate, there's maybe at first you're like, okay, like we're gonna do this, it's gonna be challenging, but I'm here. And then typically, so for me, then my brain would start to pick out uncomfortable physical sensations, right? Trying to find the right position, worrying about, oh no, like what if that uncomfortable feeling, we don't fix that, or that's going to interfere. And of course, then we just sit with it, the uncomfortable feeling. And then usually after the brain starts to notice, okay, you're not going to fix uncomfortable physical feelings, it moves on to just throwing up maybe some uncomfortable thoughts. It'll do two things. Actually, I'd say three things. It'll run through all sorts of tasks we could be doing, because it's often the case, right? Especially in my life right now, if I'm coming into a meditation retreat, I was doing a lot of work just before I got there. And the brain is in that let's get work done mode, and then suddenly I'm sitting. So my brain will be like, yeah, what about this? We could do this. What about that? Well, here's an entire book idea. You could make a TV show on this. Like it's looking for anything to do. And then it might start to go through maybe old, painful memories or something like that, kind of going, well, okay, you're not going to fix any of that. Is this a problem? What about this? Is this a problem? And then also I notice it'll try to just get angry about something. Because again, it's looking for any kind of problem to fix. And that's probably the second and third day is really the brain looking for any kind of thing to do. 'Cause it's really, we associate a lot of safety with constantly overworking, being stressed, trying to fix problems. So when we sit and pause and do nothing, it's quite shocking for the brain. And then probably on day 4 or 5, I would say the brain starts to catch on, like, okay, maybe we'll just sit here. And then maybe, day 6, the brain is great. It's like it has its own cushion and it just sits there beside you. And then day 7, it's all over. And then it's gone. Velociraptor, hello. Good to see you, Dan. Good afternoon. In winter, good evening. Oh, in winter. Thanks for joining us in your evening. And yay, good morning. It's morning here right now. We still live on a planet where we can time travel. See, some of you are living in the future, which is phenomenal. I hope your future is going well. Take care of it there for us. If anybody has any, things you'd like to focus on in the week ahead, what would they be? I think I just moved to a new place, So what I always like to focus on when I've just moved to a new place is getting consistent with cooking food. When in the first week of being in a new place, I'll let myself, kind of figure out where I'm going to get food and, maybe eat out at more restaurants or something like that. And then in that second week, get down to really cooking and nourishing myself, making sure that food's taken care of so that I can focus on the things I want to do. Luckily, the place I moved into has food storage containers. Often, when I get to a place, one of the first things I'll do is get containers to store food in so I can cook a lot of food, store it, easily get it. So that I can be creating something, pause, go enjoy something, come back, and it all kind of like works together well. Dan said I'd like to be focused on revising for my exams this month. I know a lot of people are coming into exam season, right? Good luck with that. I was just doing a talk at a university here the other day, just last week, and they, of course, were coming up on a lot of exams. And when we have a brain, like many of ours, that's really good at doing stuff, it gets in that mode, right, of like, we're gonna control a lot of things, and it's incredible. It's also really important that we have a way or a practice of what I call shutting down the factory. We maybe have a tendency to start up the factory and just run it at full blast 24/7. What happens then is that quickly leads us into the brain throwing up a lot of intrusive thoughts. Because, very similar to what I was just explaining with the meditation retreat, we'll then have a moment where we could relax, but maybe all day we've been like teaching the brain, hey, what about this? Think about this. There's this problem. We could fix this. Don't forget to do that. Oh no, we haven't studied that enough. We're spinning that constantly. Then when we want to take a break, if we're not practicing pausing, we're not practicing putting down the tools, the brain is going to give us a problem to fill the space. Like I was talking about on Instagram, I made a post yesterday, right, on the problem solving monster. And so people notice this a lot too, that when we drop the compulsions, it's very likely that the brain is going to try to fill that space because it associates solving problems with safety, right? We teach that over these years, like, oh, I really want to get relief from this problem. I really want to solve it. The more we chase that, the more the brain's going to give us things to solve. It's just being a really helpful brain. Oh, and Winter, thanks a lot for joining the live and following the post on Instagram too. It's great to see you here. Yeah. So I'd like to focus on not hitting the snooze button in the morning when I wake up. Any tips? Yeah, you know what I used to do? I used to put a sticky note on my phone because I used my phone as the alarm. And so I couldn't turn off the alarm without taking off the sticky note. And then the sticky note would tell me something to go and do. The kind of practice of intentionally writing out that thing the night before, of like, okay, when I wake up, here's the action I'm gonna go do. So it would just say something like, go to the kitchen and get a glass of water. That practice of kind of identifying the intention in the morning, making it difficult to ignore the intention when the alarm went off, just kind of delayed how easy it would be to turn off the alarm. And that was in part for me because I have an incredible ability to turn off the alarm without waking up. I can, if an alarm goes off, I can very easily turn it off and then later wake up and be like, oh, my alarm didn't go off. But it did go off and I just turned it off. So it is really useful to, if you're just thinking tips in general, how can you just extend the space there before doing the compulsion. Well, Steph Smith, welcome. I'm sorry to hear you spent the last few days in hospital. I hope things are going better now and you're taking care of yourself. Fabio. Yeah, so Fabio, you said here, let's talk about the elephant in the room. You said you always emphasize the importance of building mental health and community. Regarding the current world situation, I think there's a lot to do for us humans. Discrimination, wars, and authoritarian leaders, in quotations, which is appropriate, seem to increase. Do you have any tips on how to share our own values of love and compassion in a way that is healthy for us and the people around us? Yeah, I think in part it is just asking that question. It is seeing that that is a thing to do. It has to be an active thing we're building proactively, and asking in situations, what do I want to create and build? Because there can be that tendency to just look at something terrible happening and go, oh, that's stupid. Okay, I'm going to go do something more useful over here. But we see, because we are just on one ship, and if a bunch of people on the ship are drilling holes in the ship, we can't just go sit and be like, I'm just going to go to the lounge. Those people are stupid, because we're all on the same ship. So absolutely, when we look at things happening, if you look at everything happening on a large scale, it might seem very difficult then to do anything. And so drilling it down to what can we do today, what am I going to do, and the actions and the interactions I have with other people, what are those things that I can build? It's a reason. I was just talking about this on, there was a comment somebody had put on a video from the other day, talking about problems they had had in the mental health care system. So that they had been to many therapists, they'd been to many services, and they had often given them really, bad, unscientific, non-evidence-based advice that made things worse, and they were upset by that. And they asked, like, so what do you do with that? And I was sharing about how, when I was first starting out, it was very easy to see lots of things that were problems or terrible experiences people were having in mental health systems. And early on, I could remember times where there were even particular things where I would catch myself just ruminating on. It was almost like one of the brain's defaults. Like if there was nothing else going on in the brain, like, oh yeah, don't we hate this? And it really helped me to notice if I was ruminating on something like that and say, okay, sure, that's fine. Congratulations, brain, like that's wrong. What are we gonna do? What are we going to create? Like instead of spending this time just pointing out something wrong in my head, like go make something, go share something that can actually be useful to people. And you see, like us gathering here today, like our community on Discord, when we connect on YouTube, on Instagram, if we work together, all of these different ways. If you've been to any of the workshops that I was doing this summer, when we make stuff, we can start to create and build community. And if each of us is looking at ways that we can create and build and share support and share help with others, where we can care for ourselves, where we can care for the interactions and support those in our lives who might need that support for whatever reason. That's really powerful. And when we're each doing that, that has a really big impact. Even though when we begin, we may think, oh, what's the point? Or nobody's going to pay attention, or I'm not going to create something that helps somebody. But it does. And so if we're all looking at how do we take care of that ship, how do we take care of each other while we take care of that ship, that can be a useful, beneficial thing. But it's tough. So I think it's always asking that question. So yeah, thanks for bringing it up, Fabio. Maybe when we see pain and suffering, how do we help step into that and create something different? Oh, Velociraptor. You mean, yeah, this is a great question. Kind of related to this too. Uh, Velociraptor says, what can we do when there is so much we're doing and so much we still want to add in our lives, but there just doesn't seem to be enough time? Is it about cutting out things of lower value, even if there's still things we value? Uh, so I'd say yes. And also that sense of there always being stuff to do and like there's more we've got to do, that could always be there. So what I bring it to, I would say, yeah, two things. So one, like you touched on there, really understanding what we value the most. I would say, especially as we progress in our journey with mental fitness, a lot of it becomes just about, I would say, seeing what's important. There's always going to be so much. So in any moment, looking at the context in which we find ourselves, what is the most important thing right now? What do I really value giving my time and energy to? And then when the brain throws up or somebody else says, "Hey, why didn't you do this?" Or brain's like, "There's this other thing we got to do." It is about saying, "Okay, I see that, but I chose to give my time and energy to this other thing, and I know I really care about that." So that's where I'll have to talk about dropping dishes, right? We can't carry all the dishes. So which ones are we going to make sure that we deliver to the table? And yeah, we may drop some and here's some plates breaking, but trusting that, hey, okay, so yeah, I dropped the appetizer, but I delivered the dessert. And that's the most important. But the other thing is, like I said, that feeling could always be there. The brain loves to always say, you're not doing enough. There's something else. You've got to go clean this other thing and get it to that 100% perfect clean feeling. The brain's really good at that. It's often going to be trying to do that. And so what I like to do there, even recognizing I am going to do stuff, I am going to do more things, but always seeing this moment as enough. Thich Nhat Hanh had a phrase he would often bring up. There's nowhere to go and nothing to do. And that is a really useful tool and something deep to explore in any moment where the brain's constantly pushing us. There's got to be this other thing. What are you going to do next? Even if we're sitting there meditating, what's going to happen after meditation? Even if we're doing something valuable, well, how are we going to do more of this? And really exploring that idea that this right here, right now, I don't have to go anywhere else. I don't have to do anything else. This is enough. And it's a big vote of trust in ourselves. So we can say, hey, actually, maybe I'll never, this thing I'm doing right now, maybe I'll never do anything else. But I trust myself to continue on and do other things. In many ways, I'm bringing that up just to put a pause on the brain. The brain is an amazing work dog and it'll always want to do more. But right now, I can just enjoy doing what I'm doing. Dalton, he said, is it useful to schedule time slots of what you're doing each day so that you're not doing compulsions? It might be at first. If you're just starting out cutting out compulsions, I find a schedule of knowing what I'm going to do was really useful so that there wasn't that empty space because the brain's going to jump right in there and say, now you got to do compulsions. But as part of that, so if you're doing something like ERP or ACT and you're cutting out compulsions, it's also a great exercise to add in chunks of empty time. So you can start to practice having unscheduled time and not choosing the compulsions, because what often happens, and this would happen to me all the time, I would schedule something in, but maybe it was like a social event, and then the social event would get canceled, and then my brain would just go, oh, okay, you should just fill the time with compulsions. And I'd be like, oh, you're right, I better do that. And it was therefore very important to learn how to have unstructured space because life is unpredictable and there'll be times where you can't schedule in everything. But you can just start building that as an exercise, like starting with 30 minutes or something like that. My coffee, my coffee is good. I got it ground at a place nearby. It's excellent. Oh, Fabio, thank you. Oh, thank you for being part of the community. I appreciate you stopping by today and asking about a really important topic. Young Bucks fan. He said, can you give us some insight on the benefits of meditation when it comes to intrusive thoughts and OCD? I would say that practicing meditation is the same skill we're practicing with cutting out compulsions around intrusive thoughts. I don't approach meditation as this thing that was, some kind of magic special ritual that was useful with recovery. I actually look at meditation in the other way around. Because I was cutting out compulsions, because I was starting to drop all of that extra hard work in my head, it helped me recognize what meditation was about. And so I came to it that way, realizing then, oh, like these skills they're exploring in meditation, these are the same skills I had to learn to have a thought and go, okay, like that, okay, fine, that thought's a horrible, intrusive thought, it's painful, it brings up anxiety, and it can be there. And I can do something else. And so, yeah, you could look though, then as meditation. One of the reasons to explore it is that we get to practice those skills. With meditation, we're sitting down, we're saying, look, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to have experiences. And we're putting all of the experiences on the same level. I can hear a dog outside, I can hear somebody preparing breakfast. Maybe I can notice a thought. Maybe I can experience an emotion inside of me. Maybe I can feel some pain in my knee on the meditation cushion. And starting to see all of those experiences are the same. And I get to choose which ones I give my attention to. I can notice the urge to fix any one of those experiences. I could just as easily get angry about like somebody making noise while we're making a video or something like that. But I don't have to chase after it. And so that's how I would say meditation and working on recovery from OCD or intrusive thoughts go together. They are the practice of having experiences. If though we approach meditation to like get something, we're like, I'm gonna go meditate because it's gonna like get rid of intrusive thoughts, then you're probably though gonna notice a lot of intrusive thoughts while you meditate. It can really help to approach it as just one of the ways we practice the same skill set. But it's important not only to practice it during meditation, but to also practice it when we're doing anything else in life. If we're just sitting and eating, if we're here on a video right now, listening or helping others, we can have a lot of experiences while we exist here. Oh, Velociraptor, you're welcome. Conversaciones, good afternoon. The angels share. Excuse me, it's good to see you. Angelical music. He said, I want to study, but every time I think of studying, my mind tells me that I can't achieve anything. Oh, then I'm too dumb to study, and this has happened for quite some time. Can this be another OCD thought? Well, OCD can be any thought. It helped me instead to see that OCD is the compulsions. So OCD is not, like there's not an OCD thought. OCD is actually what we do to thoughts. Because we can practice OCD compulsions around all sorts of things that are real, all sorts of things that are imagined, things from other people, things from inside of our heads. So OCD would be how you're studying or not studying. Because I know you said, I want to study. What if you could sit down to study and if there's any kind of thought about anything, you pulled it up a chair beside you, kind of saw it as this monster just shouting stuff, and you invite it to join you and watch you study. And it can shout whatever it wants, and you can study right in front of it. Dan, he said, any tips for procrastination? I find myself always going to video games and social media just for that dopamine and stress relief when I should be doing things to benefit my life. Yeah, part of it is starting to see it's not stress relief, right? It's the more we procrastinate, the more stress we create. That in many ways, we're usually addicted to the stress, that we're actually delaying it because the only thing that will get us to do any work is a really big bad feeling, right? The pressure of, oh no, I haven't done it, I've got to do it now, something bad's going to happen. It's not relieving things, it's not giving us a good experience. In fact, when we do stuff, we tend to enjoy that experience much more. There are a couple things you can do. One, starting to look at, so what are the boundaries you want to set around social media, uh, video games as well. I go after as well that narrative. So usually we have some kind of story like, oh, I need to get something done, but I need to de-stress. And so I need to get some kind of good feeling before I continue. And that is just a lie. It's a lie we tell ourselves, so we'll keep doing the compulsions. It can be useful to see it as that, because if you keep believing in it, like if you believe, oh, there is this, I need to do some ritual to get a feeling before I do my work, that'll, like, that's the compulsion. It's always going to mess with you. So we can throw that out. So one way to even work on throwing something like that out, it helps me to remove the buffer space. So starting to put activities together that in the past I would have seen as activities that shouldn't go together. So for instance, uh, I would line up, say I had to do some kind of like accounting, financial task. Often I would like delay stuff like that. So I would set up the things I had to do on my computer and commit to doing it as soon as I came back from the gym. And in my head, I'd be like, no, it feels wrong, or like I want to go like unwind, or I need to get food first, or whatever, and just do it. Or I would especially do that with like phone calls. If I had to call somebody about something, starting to do the phone call at a wrong time. So you really start to show the brain that this whole narrative of needing to chase feelings before doing things, you're just going to go wild with it now and not wait for that at all. Another thing you can do around working on procrastination is just in your calendar, you start to schedule in activities at random times. So really short activities. And at first you make them not productive. So you might say, okay, at 2:37 today, I'm going to walk outside, touch a tree, and come back inside. And then you do it. So it doesn't take a lot of time, but you do it no matter what you're doing at the time, no matter what you feel like, no matter what the brain is thinking. And so you start to do these random activities just to build up this understanding that you get to choose what you do and you get to choose when you do it. And then so you might do a week of that as the random activities. And then you start to gradually add in things that are kind of like more productive, as you just build up a practice of committing to something and following through on it. So enjoy doing some things when the brain says you can't do them. The angel share said, this thought appliance of mine didn't come with a warranty, so thank you, Mark, for being here to provide tech support. That's what this is, a really community support, because the company that made these thought appliances, yeah, has gone bankrupt, which is really unfortunate. Yay. He said, I just can't get over the fear of not fitting in and not being liked and people getting angry and mad at me. What should I do? Well, yeah, what if it's okay for that to happen? Would you, so something, whenever that comes up, I always ask people, would you be nice to yourself? Because often we're really afraid of other people being mean to us or other people abandoning us because we're so mean to ourselves. If we're a bad friend to ourselves, of course it makes sense we never want to be left alone with ourselves. So I would look at that. How can you be a really kind friend and colleague to yourself? So that if you are alone with yourself, that's not a scary thing. But yeah, if we're terrible to ourselves, then yeah, we're typically really afraid of being left alone with ourselves. Conversaciones said, hoping everyone uses meditation as an invitation to be seated behind your thoughts. Yeah, with no judgment or connection, as an observer. Yeah, thoughts will take you to endless scenarios. Exactly. Thank you for sharing that. I'm the blurry. You said, is there something I should say to instantly let myself know that it's not my thought and just OCD? So I don't like, I find that those things are compulsions. Like the example I often throw up is like we wouldn't say that if we were walking by a tree or a cloud. We wouldn't go, that's just a tree. It's not me. If we're doing that, we actually kind of imply that that's possible. I would start to look at it instead, like just what do you want to give your time and energy to in life? Like you don't have to give that time and energy to labeling thoughts. Like it's just a fact that you are not a tree and you are not your thoughts. One thing to look at is that there might be situations where actually if the thought is something you like, that you might actually really be attaching it to yourself. That was something I did. When I started to work on cutting out ruminating, cutting out this really intense attachment to thoughts, it was useful to start working on the stuff that I liked. Because we can't have it two ways. We can't be like, well, if the tree is a maple tree, it's me. I am maple trees. But if the tree is a pine tree, it's not me. That's really confusing for the brain. What if none of the brain stuff is us? It's all just experiences, right? Just like I was explaining earlier, the sounds we experience outside, we can hear a sound, we can feel some kind of discomfort in our body and we recognize that that's an experience, even though it's all happening in our heads. NC5811, thanks for sharing that with us, Smith. Saeed said, what are the ways to explore free and unstructured time? I've just finished a big step in my life and I'm finding it hard to slow down. Yeah, really common. I'll often talk about, even if, and this is something everybody can do, if you've been on a really intense work period of time, of school, like people coming up to exams, even if you were just away doing some kind of course or an intense work period, or even if it was vacation, it helps to have kind of a ramp down. Just because if we've been, whatever schedule we've been running it, our brains just have this tendency to keep going at that schedule. So if we've been solving a lot of problems, say we've been studying, doing exams, and then suddenly we're done, if we just finish and do a hard cut, the brain doesn't get it. It's going to be like, what are you talking about? Like, I'm great at solving problems. Here, what about this memory? What about this terrible thing that happened in the past? Solve it. It'll just want to keep going. So having some structured, unstructured time can be useful. So for example, one thing I used to do these kind of intense business strategy workshop facilitation gigs. And so I might be away for 5 days, we're working really long hours, 12 hours. It's very, very structured. Like you're in this meeting, then you're going to go do this task, and then you'll be back in this meeting, and then we're gonna all get together and have this task, and this is when you eat your meals, and everything was taken care of. So then when I would come back and it was totally unstructured time after, that was very difficult. So what I would do in the days after is kind of say, okay, for the last 5 days, my schedule has been completely packed with things and seeing people. So rather than just coming home and going, no people, no structure, on that first day back, I'm going to go and do some activities. I'm going to make sure some of those activities involve other people. And then on the second day after the workshop, I'm going to introduce a period of unstructured time in the afternoon. But in the morning, I'm going to make sure I take my brain to go and do some things that are scheduled. And so I'll just gradually bring it back down to some unstructured time. So looking at whatever the schedule was that you were just in, what were the qualities of that schedule, then how can you give yourself a kind of similar schedule and gradually reduce it down to where it's just kind of free. I'm the blurry. So you said, how fast does it take for an intrusive thought to just stop popping into my head, even after labeling as an intrusive thought? So I wouldn't. So I would see what you're describing there as a compulsion. And actually, if we're trying to clean our mind, and we're trying to look for techniques to clean away thoughts, that's what I would see as the practice of the struggle with mental health. I define great mental health and fitness as having any thought or feeling while doing the actions we value in life. So I wouldn't have a technique for trying to get rid of a thought. I would expect that to just encourage the brain to bring up more of them. Shanti, thank you for being here. Yeah, Velociraptor just saying here at the end. Yeah, compulsions are reactions to brain stuff we don't like, trying to control, check on, or cope with experiences rather than following values. Exactly. Let's just scrolling through here. Perpetual says sometimes when I work, I have thoughts about me being too stupid to work here. Aw, one thing that helps me is to write down each of these thoughts that pop up and then get back to work. Hey, that's great. You're getting back to work. Yeah, whatever the brain is throwing up, we can just invite it to be here. Ads Bohemian said, "Do you have any tips for health anxiety?" Oh, I wouldn't recommend health anxiety. What do you want to give your time and energy to instead of health anxiety? Ashanti, so I would like to ask, what's to do about my very creative mind? It's so creative. I'm an amazing artist, but just when I'm about to create, even on a subject about these demons, I let the demons crush me. So I would be interested to dig into when you said I let the demons crush me. What does that mean to you? And what if, yeah, we took a moment, we said, okay, what if there are no demons and there's just us? What is doing the crushing? And that's where I would begin. Harry said, my intrusive thought doesn't have a content. It comes only when I study, try to focus. It's like I focus on fearing and I can't even clearly figure out when am I fearing and when I truly can't understand. Yeah, often, and I would say this is even like quite often the case as people are cutting out lots of compulsions, right? They're no longer engaging with the content of the intrusive thoughts. It's typically going to just become a wrong feeling. And the compulsions it end up being like trying to chase the wrong feeling and figure it out at a really fundamental level with so much of this stuff. We are just working on having wrong experiences. The content doesn't really matter. In some ways, it's even possible we're just adding the content in after to try to give ourselves a way to solve the wrong feeling. But as we ditch the content, we're just left with, ooh, this wrong feeling. And, ooh, I don't want to be stuck with a wrong feeling. Just kind of that bigger fundamental feared pattern. It can be useful to practice with just that. So saying like the intrusive thought doesn't need content. The intrusive feeling doesn't need content. It doesn't need understanding. It doesn't need your time and energy. Can it just be a wrong feeling that's there? And that experience can be there and it can be wrong and you can put it in your pocket and take it along with you. Well, you do the things you actually want to do. A second, I'm gonna slide over here for a second. My computer was blinking at me in the background. Dan said, I quit vaping 4 days clean because I found I would take a hit every time I'd be stressed. over uncertainty or a thought that I didn't like, yeah, congratulations, Dan. It's useful to see. Because also what happens there is the brain's going to throw up the intrusive thoughts because it's the thing that gets us to do the compulsion. So yeah, actually dropping the compulsion lets the brain not have to constantly be pushing for it. Stefan, so it's so hard to keep doing certain values when your brain keeps on spamming the thought incessantly. I wonder if there's something I'm doing wrong. How do you overcome wanting to feel good after doing values? The like I would see the doing the values as the action and the goal and the purpose. I approach mental health and fitness as having any feeling. And so this is where physical fitness was really useful to understand, because if you approached physical fitness as being about feeling good, it's very difficult to build physical fitness. Actually, I want to go to the gym and do some exercises that are going to be pretty intense. They're probably going to feel uncomfortable even after the workout. Sure, I might, like if people say like it feels good, but what you're saying feels good is actually a lot of like discomfort, muscle burn, exhaustion. You're all sweaty, you're sore. You might be sore for a couple days after. I'm doing an action I value, it doesn't necessarily feel good. Many things that we value doing don't feel good. So yeah, I'd be curious there about, because you probably know that in other areas of your life. Why is it in this area you believe like chasing a good feeling is the path to doing the things you want to do? Yay. Super important question here. What is my favorite type of coffee? This is something I have to look for a lot. My favorite type of coffee is, I'd say, so yeah, not necessarily Colombian coffee, but I would say it's really easy to get excellent coffee in Colombia. And I love the, and so some of you, I only learned about this maybe 2, 3 years ago. My favorite type of coffee is what's called honey coffee or unwashed coffee. And so it has all of these extra flavors, and you can typically only get that kind of coffee very close to where coffee is made. There are some places I have had honey coffee in, I got some when I was in Finland. They had brought some from Ethiopia. I've seen it in Singapore before, and there you pay a ridiculous amount of money because it probably had to get flown over, but it's very easy to get when you're in coffee producing regions. And it's because when coffee is typically shipped far from coffee producing regions, it has to be like really like washed of all sorts of really good things, but that could go bad when it's going to be sitting in a warehouse or something for a long time. And then I also prefer a lighter roast. And then again, a lot of the coffee you get, the further you are away from coffee regions, they really just kind of have to burn it. And so I've found something really interesting from drinking, yeah, like unwashed natural coffee or honey coffee. Now, when I drink like a even a medium roast, it tastes burnt. I feel it tastes like I'm just like licking a barbecue. So yeah, I really like light roast, kind of fresh, natural coffee that still has all of the like kind of good stuff on it. So it tastes, it's a bit fruitier, more acidic, it's lighter. When you smell it, it smells like a forest floor, which doesn't actually smell that good at first, but it tastes amazing. So that's what I would say is my favorite kind of coffee. The lighter the roast is too, the more caffeine. So yeah, I would say more flavor. You can have a smaller coffee, and you get a really, I would say, like bright experience. I hope everybody's enjoying whichever coffee you're having this morning, or no coffee. Coffee is a great, I would say, exercise or practice to explore. Because probably, many of you, and I was the same, if I used to have caffeine, I would then just do all sorts of compulsions. caffeine, too much, yeah, like a lot of caffeine was a huge issue. And now, no, it's great to have those feelings, have that experience, and I don't have to do anything with it. Yeah. And so also you said, where should you direct your attention to if you're not doing anything at that moment? Being you. So many of our fears, right? If we think about fears of, losing control, something terrible happening to us, not getting to do the things we want to do in life. Our fears are about not being ourselves. But the moment we have a chance to simply be, what do? Try to fill the space, distract ourselves, call it boredom, and get rid of it. Excuse me. So, yeah, it's really useful to explore just being. We don't have to do anything else. We don't have to fill the space. In a moment where we have nothing to do, we are doing the most incredible thing that we've ever wanted to do, which is to live our lives on this planet. So that's a really amazing thing, an amazing experience we can connect to in that moment. And Hania, you just asked how to deal with the fear of losing our mind, of losing control. Yeah, by living our lives, doing the things we really want to do. Dan, do you think listening to music while you sleep, commute to work, and doing work as a way to be mindful and focus one thing is a healthy practice? So I would just clarify so you just said listening to music while sleeping, working, and commuting is a way to focus on one thing, but you described two things. If we're just doing one thing, like if I'm just sleeping, then it's fun to explore just sleeping. If I'm commuting to work, it's fun to explore commuting to work. Uh, so there is nothing wrong if you want to listen to music. Uh, that can be a really enjoyable experience too. If you want to explore skills, it can be useful to look at, can you do just one thing? And so, yeah, I found it really helpful to look at how I was always filling the space with, there was always a podcast on, always music on. I felt like I couldn't, like work out without music, or I couldn't sweep the floor without music. So it was useful to look at, okay, I want to learn how to do things without needing to fill that space. And that includes then also not needing to fill the space with like ruminating or problem solving. I can just drive. I can just walk to the store. I can just wash the dishes. It's a great, really fun practice and skill to explore. Yeah, oh, and Velociraptor brought that up. I see down below. Velociraptor pointed out, I would guess that what you're describing is more likely a way to distract yourself, taking your mind away from actual things you're doing. And I said, I have plenty experience doing that. Yeah, we've all practiced that a lot. Jack said, I successfully got out of a severe mental rut of about 4 months last year. I've been great for roughly a year, but those feelings are coming back again, and this is causing me severe depression. Any tips on not falling into this scam? I don't know how I got out of it last time, but I did. Uh, when you mentioned falling into a severe depression, I'd be curious what that means. And that's also going to show the exercises out. And so I'm making this swirling motion with my finger. I'll explain why. Often when we're getting into depression, I describe it as a spiral. So we'll start to avoid things. We'll start to not do the things we want to do. We'll usually have really great stories for why we're doing that. But we start to retreat and we start to shrink our lives in this spiral. And that is very depressing. We're putting random brain stuff in charge of our lives. We're losing control of it. But maybe losing isn't the right verb because we're actively giving up control of it. We're going, oh, that I don't want to experience that feeling. I'm not going to take that step. I don't want to potentially have something go wrong there. I'm going to wait until after this experience passes, and then we quickly give up control of our lives. And so the way that I find it useful to work out of that is starting to reverse that. So rather than going, I don't know what this thing is, I don't want to fall into it, I would look at what is the practice of living your life. So what are the things you want to be doing? What do you want to be growing? And what are the actions that are going to do that? And then it's about starting to do those while having the feelings. So yeah, there's going to be some uncomfortable feelings while you do that. What supports are going to help you have those feelings and live your life. So really looking at that, what is it that I want to be growing and what's the plan for that, rather than, oh no, something bad could happen to my garden, I've got to avoid it. We can cut out all of the weeds from our gardens and not grow anything useful. When we devote all of our time and energy just to weeding, we can't be surprised that when the winter comes, we have nothing to eat. And yeah, it's kind of depressing. So what is it that you want to grow? And then we grow it. Karsten said, how do I relax when things are going good? I live in a constant state of flinching in anticipation of the next OCD theme or struggle coming up. I always think bad things are around the corner. Yeah, so it helped me to see that those experiences are like the weights in the gym. And yeah, if we approach physical fitness with a sense of like, oh, I hope there are no weights in the gym. I hope nobody asks me to exercise. Yeah, then it's a very stressful experience. But if we want to have experiences because we want to practice skills, we want to practice having human experiences while living our lives and seeing like that is a full life, then we don't have to be afraid of those. So yeah, I'd be curious about what would it be like to want to have experiences because you trust yourself to have them and you're excited to see how you handle them. And that doesn't mean they have to be easy. Just like if we go to the gym, saying like, yeah, I don't know if I can do that lift. I don't know if I can do that exercise, but I want to find out and I want to try. So in ACT, in acceptance commitment therapy, they'll often talk about willingness. Yeah, could you be willing to have those experiences? Could they be part of a full life? Adam, welcome. Said, no question, I just wanted to thank you for your amazing content. Oh, Adam, thank you. Would love to assist in one of your workshops to come to Paris. Oh, Adam, thank you. Yeah, please keep that in mind. Because yeah, I'll definitely do some workshops again. I didn't get a chance to come to France, that part of Europe this summer, but I'd love to again, and I'll try to go to a retreat in the future at Plum Village. So I'm sure there'll be a chance to be in Paris. So yeah, please keep that in mind. It would be great to do a workshop in Paris. Thank you. Blooper 785, you said, what if ignoring the thoughts and doing something causes a terrible thing to happen? Yeah. And you could pay attention to the thoughts and terrible things could happen. There could be no thoughts and terrible things could happen. And so thoughts aren't a useful way to prevent terrible things. And you appreciate that all the time. Like the example I often give with this is flying an airplane. If you get on the airplane, do you want the safety of the flight to depend on whether or not the pilot has an intrusive thought about something bad happening? Or would you like the pilot to take care of safety based on values, based on flying the plane well? Because also, if the goal is just to avoid bad things happening, don't take off. Yeah, just sit. Like this is what we do with OCD all the time. We build this cage that we think is protecting us, but then just locks us in, sitting in a corner. However, you could also argue that is maybe the worst thing that could happen, and we create it by engaging in our compulsions. Oh, school says, yeah, I hope you're taking care of yourself as you're, yeah, running into some challenging experiences in life. Mo Ma, she said, you're actively building an OCD app. That's great. You're like putting time and energy into creating. Oh, and then you said below, you actually saved me 7 years back. I had no resources to overcome it. Your videos gave me the resilience to overcome the wait for a therapist. Oh, well, I'm glad the videos were there and you could use those resources. That's exactly what they're for. And it's amazing now that you're sharing those skills with others so they can find support. So, yeah, thank you. Yay. So, what are some values, example for studying and taking care of yourself? I won't do it to impress others. I'd have some more questions there first. But so the thing I would look at there is first, like, what are you trying to get? It is common that we learn at a very young age that we've got to overwork, we've got to get things perfect, we've got to figure out some kind of hard work ritual that's going to control love from other people. We learn that really early on, like, oh, if I don't know how to navigate these uncertain human relationships, they don't make sense, but I've seen that if I just overwork or I do something perfect, people are, give me attention. As we get older, that just becomes unscalable and it becomes unhelpful. But I would start there by looking, like when you say impress people, what do you think you're going to get by trying to impress people? Like why? And then I would ask, well, how can you start to give that to yourself? Because yeah, if you always have to chase it from other people, you're always going to have to be trying to do mind control on other people. And mind control is really difficult, especially if you're not in a science fiction TV series. If you're in a science fiction TV series, then mind control is sometimes much easier. Oh, and yeah, you said, have you tried Kopi Luwak coffee? I know about Kopi Luwak coffee, but I, I mean, of course, I don't have anything against coffee beans that have been pooped out of a rodent. However, often the thing is, what they'll do to cultivate that, they're not doing it in the wild. They often put I can't remember, they're like little ferrets. They put them in cages, like really tiny cages, and force feed them. And so it's really not nice. Like I don't want to eat coffee beans that have been like, yeah, like pooped out from like a trapped animal that's having a really bad time. I don't think that's gonna be delicious for my breakfast. Mo, so but you said curious you'd be open to talk about your OC journey and if you're willing to give feedback on my solution. Yeah, like I've shared a lot about the different adventures I was on, but yeah, Mo, if you have yeah, if you reach out, like if you go to my website, markfreeman.ca, there's a contact form there. Yeah, if you want to send what you're working on, and you want any feedback or anything like that, yeah, I'm happy to share. Yeah, Harry. So you said I have a weird intrusive feeling where I just focus on fearing and getting scared, and I can't think properly because my focus is pulled by this feeling again and again. It happens each time I need to focus. Yeah, and so that's exactly what I was talking about earlier, Harry. Like that's the wrong feeling to have. And so starting to see so many of the experiences we're having in our head, you could approach them like sounds. If I want to study, and I need zero sound, I'm going to be very vulnerable. It's going to be very difficult to study because there's often sounds around us. And that's essentially what we're doing with feelings and thoughts, going like, there can't be any wrong experience, there can't be a wrong sound. When we do that with feelings and thoughts, then yeah, it just becomes this really difficult practice. And so the skill to build is that I want to study, for instance, well, there's other people around. I want to study well having thoughts. I want to study well having feelings. If we're chasing that clean, whatever it is, then it just creates problems. But starting to see it's not the feeling that's creating the problem, it's us saying that this shouldn't be here. The moment we're saying the present moment is wrong, we've kind of screwed ourselves. So instead, looking at, that's why I talk about it as mental fitness, right? It is the skill to have experiences while we do the things that we want to do. Just like if we were like lifting a weight while walking. I want the capacity to lift a weight and walk. Ah, okay. Well, I'll check out your email later. Enjoy the gym. Zenitsu said, how do I decrease my dopamine spike? How do you know you're having a dopamine spike? There's a lot of I was gonna say like pseudo information. It's really just it's like a meme or a trendy term. Yeah, what if you set aside this whole narrative around a dopamine spike and look at, yeah, what are the actions you want to be doing? You're gonna have some feelings while you do them. But the idea of like I need to decrease some imagined meme, that's challenging. Yeah, it usually gets us into a lot of compulsions. Huzaima, he said, I know that following my values is good for me and doing compulsions is bad, but I don't understand why I should be acting according to my values is good for me and doing compulsions is bad. Can you maybe explain that a bit more? Because you said at the start, I know that following my values is good for me. But then you said, I don't understand why I should be acting according to my values. Yeah, so maybe can you clarify what you mean there? Oh, I see down below. You said, my brain always wants a reason to follow my values. Without reason, it's very difficult to follow my values. So I would look like values. Sometimes I describe them as recipes. A value and a set of values is like, how do you make good cookies? So I would say the reason is pretty clear. Like it's because that is the way to do the things I want to do in life. To follow the compulsions creates all sorts of problems. So if I want to follow the compulsions, then I'm also choosing all of the problems. If you want the problems, then yeah, follow the compulsions. If you want to do the things you want to do in life, then it can be useful to follow the values that do that thing well. Dalton, he said, I love hanging out with my friends and my family and socially drinking. I don't have an alcohol problem, but I'm wondering if doing this every weekend is a compulsion. So with a lot of the stuff, instead of looking at whether it's a compulsion, like what do you want to do? What's useful to you? Right? You can play around with it and experiment with it and see what's useful to you. Chris slays the math dragon is a teacher. She'll give you the opportunities to slay the math dragon. They said, as a teacher, I tend to experience burnout often. Oh, yeah, that's understandable. A bad day at work can send me down a spiral of researching career changes for a week. I like my job, but how to deal with the stress that comes with it? Hey, like some of it is just going to be exploring that, starting to see. So we say, look, if you're going to stay in the job and you're not going to make a career change right now, then that, having a bad day and then doing the career change research is probably just actually creating more stress for you. So then when there's a stressful time, what do you want to do instead? Because there is a thing there, there's an experience, there's a search to alleviate it, to get rid of it, to do something with it. But as is often the case, and we see this in many areas in society in many ways right now, when we react to a painful feeling with more compulsions, we tend to create more pain. Yeah, what would you like to do when there's a bad day, when there's that stress, when there's that urge where the brain's like, flip the table and change everything right now? Yeah, what would you find most useful? Kieran said, I've been struggling with OCD since my childhood. Various phases went by. Currently on SSRIs, also struggling so hard with this messing up everything that I can't even read a sentence. And then, oh, it got cut off too. Ah, and then, and so Kieran, yeah, is there a particular thing about that you're curious about? Blooper. Yeah, you said here, I can't even relax probably because I watch something and then get a thought and then do response prevention and then it isn't relaxing anymore. I feel like I haven't relaxed for so long. Any tips? I don't understand what you meant by I do response prevention there. Yeah, I maybe if you want to share kind of what you mean. Why? So if you have a thought and you're relaxing, yeah, because why do you have to do anything with the thought? Because do you have to see it as response prevention? Like for instance, if I'm drinking coffee here and I have a thought and I keep drinking coffee, instead of throwing the coffee cup across the room, I wouldn't see that as response prevention. I would just see it as doing the thing I want to do. And so if you're relaxing and a thought comes up, why do you have to do something with the thought? J or yay, depending on how we're pronouncing it. How do you pronounce it? J, yay? You said if we are not our thoughts, but we set goals and do things that have to do like dancing with the thoughts, like communicate with people, etc. How to make our mind not believe in the intrusive thoughts. I would be curious about why that would lead to a belief in the intrusive thoughts. I think there's maybe some more things to unpack in that. Dan, he said, I like to do cardio because it's a way to relax my nervous system and head. Is this a healthy practice or a way to get rid of a feeling? Because I've seen that cardio is good for your mental health. Oh, I mean, yeah, it doesn't matter if you're enjoying cardio and you find that useful. I mean, yeah, is it useful to you? We can separate it. If we get caught up in like adding a bunch of meaning and questioning, like, oh, like, why am I doing this? Am I doing this for the right reasons? All of that kind of stuff. I would look instead of that like trying to get it right as the practice of compulsions. Yeah, if you're finding it useful to move your body, does it need any more interrogation? It's useful to you. That can be where it stops. Because we could just as easily, yeah, we could get into questioning like eating. Be like, oh, like maybe I'm just eating because if I don't eat, I'll feel really bad. So actually eating any food is fixing a feeling. Oh, and then water too, because I don't like feeling dehydrated. So just drinking water is fixing a feeling. And very quickly, because we're taking that approach just focused on the fixing feelings, we really trap ourselves in a hole. But if we instead start from a point of what do I value doing and how do I do it well? How do I support myself? How do I nourish myself? Yeah, we're going to do all sorts of things that actually do feel good. But we are just coming from it from a place of where do I want to go and what's going to take me there. But yeah, all sorts of the things I do, and even just cutting out the compulsions, that's a way more enjoyable experience of life than all of the compulsions and ruminating and controlling and checking. So yeah, there's always a paradox here. Because yeah, all of this stuff we do, yeah, it feels great. It's amazing. It's so wonderful to have the brain like just sit and shut up now. It's such a like one of the most interesting experiences to explore through a meditation retreat. So if you do a say a silent intensive meditation retreat, one thing I noticed that comes up on all of them especially afterwards, I'd say two things are really interesting. One of them is that all of my dreams by the end of the meditation retreat are lucid dreams. And then that continues for a while afterwards and then gradually decreases. But I find it really interesting. There's this kind of somehow closer relationship with the mind so that when I'm dreaming, it's not this passive experience, like it's very active. Also, afterwards, from just practicing sitting and keeping the brain with me, yeah, like when I leave the meditation retreat, the brain is just sitting there waiting. It doesn't run off and throw stuff up. It's not like throwing up in any kind of stuff. And so I've shared about this before. Whenever I do a meditation retreat on the Instagram subscriber channel, I share a whole bunch of posts before and then after. And I've shared about before, like one of the most interesting experiences afterwards, but also can feel like a responsibility, is that the brain just sits there. We're so accustomed to the brain throwing up stuff and then we chase after it. But when you're practicing just sitting and getting the brain to sit with you, when you do that, for many hours a day for a bunch of days, afterwards it just sits there. And it just kind of looks at you. It becomes this kind of like well-trained dog. Like now the dog is going to sit there. You have to tell it what to do. And that actually can be frightening at first because we're so accustomed to chasing after it. Or we just see it as boring at first. But it's a really wonderful kind of boring. And yeah, so these are experiences we can have and they're amazing. But again, if we do it, if we go to meditation to like chase this, be like, I've got to make my brain shut up, then actually it doesn't happen. And so yeah, there's always that paradox. We can have these kind of really incredible experiences if we can let go of chasing them. Yay. He said, trying to impress others, I'm trying to be accepted and liked desperately and not be alone. Is being happy alone the way to overcome it? So I always say, not necessarily. It is both. It is so helpful to learn how to be comfortable with ourselves. Again, one of the interesting paradoxes is that when we can be alone and enjoy alone time, it actually enables us to be much more capable of engaging in social relationships because we're not approaching them to get something. We're not like, oh, I need you to like me right now, because then we're also not being ourselves. So when we can engage in social relationships because we're fine on our own, and then we can give to the relationship, but also we can also set boundaries because we're like, oh, if this isn't, this is not a relationship that's useful, like to my health, I don't have to engage with it because I'm not chasing after something. So yeah, it is useful to explore being with ourselves, but also seeing that we're very nourished by social interaction. So starting to approach social interactions in a different way. I'll usually suggest to people that they consider social interaction one of the plants in their garden. And so how often do you need to water it? If you say, look, I benefit from being around groups of people. I benefit from having one-on-one interactions with people. Okay, maybe you want to do one group activity and one-on-one activity each week, at least. And so maybe each Sunday, you're looking at the week ahead, you're saying, do I have a group social activity plan this week? Do I have one-on-one interaction plan this week? If I don't, I've got to schedule it in right now. Nourishing yourself in that way consistently, starting to even, maybe you're planning and inviting people to some of those events, a great way to practice with that fear of being rejected. Yeah, maybe you'll invite people and they won't come. Great, you'll do it again next week. So looking at those exercises to build social interaction, but then also looking at how you're going to start to practice being with yourself and being that really great friend to yourself. So it's not scary to be left alone with you. Kimberly, thank you so much for the donation. It's great to see you. Thank you for joining us and your kind words. I hope you're having a good weekend and taking care of you, being a great friend to you. I want to see, je is je, as in French. They said this is just a YouTube username. So what I'm talking about earlier is how we are not our thoughts, but we get creative with life through our thoughts. And we set goals, the ideas come from our thoughts. Yep. But they could just as easily come from other places, right? Like, say, with creative stuff, like this happens all the time. Watching a movie or something, and you see a neat idea. You're flipping through a magazine, you see some art out on the street, you go to a museum, you're inspired, you discover something, you find a useful concept that'll support one of your own creative projects. Somebody says something to you, they give you critique on your creative projects. They're like, hey, I think it would be better if you did this here. We can take those on as well, and we are not those. Like, we are not our critiques either. Somebody could give us a critique that's actually, we know, is really unhelpful. We've written a story about donuts, and they come in and they're like, no, you shouldn't do donuts. You should be talking about cinnamon rolls. And we just know that even though we accept people who eat cinnamon rolls, we know that's wrong. But also that's fine. Like, they can say that. And so, yeah, we can have all of these different experiences and we don't have to be them. Yeah, and as the Velociraptor said, acceptance is easy. We can just let it be there. And so seeing that, yeah, we can have all of our thoughts, because our thoughts, we can have a lot of thoughts that are not helpful to our creative projects. Again, this is why values are really useful. This whole concept of using values instead of reacting to brain stuff comes from creative projects. It's why sometimes something like a video game or a movie runs off the rails, because it's just chasing after random thoughts somebody's coming up with versus following a clearly defined set of values so that everybody on the team working on the project can clearly see the path forward. We can use values to set a path forward for ourselves too. Because yeah, some of our brains will also be wrong. Like, we'll make something amazing and the brain will do oh, that sucks, you can't share that with people, and then we don't. When actually it was amazing and the brain is just wrong. Blooper 75 said, this is my compulsion is to avoid whatever I'm doing when I have a thought. So I want to have that coffee, but something bad could happen because I had a thought when drinking coffee, but I value. Yeah, so we keep drinking the coffee anyway. G24, he said, I recently picked up your book and I'm enjoying it so far. Oh, well, thank you. I hope you continue to enjoy it. He said, I've suffered with OCD for quite a few years now, namely contamination OCD. I understand the avoidance is futile. I am not a rock. Exactly. Enjoy doing the exercises in the book, especially contamination OCD. It's so useful to see how that pattern can infiltrate so many areas of our lives we might not typically think of as contamination. So enjoy not being a rock and doing the things you want to do. Caleb, he said, is it possible to live from a place of complete acceptance and surrender all the time? The thing is that, notice there the completeness. This actually relates to what I was talking about just a second ago with the contamination pattern. We're so often chasing complete, 100%, 1010%, perfect, clean, total. And so there you got, is it possible to live from a place of complete acceptance and surrender all the time? And like, what if you don't have to? We are a journey of trying things, seeing what works well, seeing what doesn't work well. Can it be enough to hit maybe 70%, maybe 30% this time? And we learn, and then we're gonna try more. When we put that pressure on ourselves to hit 100%, we usually just end up always judging ourselves as lacking. Alexander's said, thank you for your content. Well, thank you for interacting with it. Said, I'm always zoning out due to intrusive thoughts. When I try to focus on something like a conversation, a YouTube video, movie, what can be done? So at first, just like we were talking about there with the 100%, making it okay. We'll put so much pressure on ourselves not to zone out that it's almost like the brain's amazing self-sabotaging streak will purposely wander off, just because then we're going to do its favorite compulsion, which is hating on ourselves. Like, oh, I should stay focused. I shouldn't have done that. What's wrong with me? How do I fix it? We end up seeing ourselves as a problem to fix. Oh, that's probably backwards. Imagine this in reverse. It says you are not a problem to fix. when we expect that, it becomes very difficult actually to focus. And so, like the Velociraptor mentioned earlier, it can help to instead be kind of lazy with it. So yeah, first of all, what if we don't have to pay attention 100% of the time? What if it's okay to let the brain puppy run off? And when it runs off, we can notice that and we can, choose what we want to focus on. If we want to focus on the conversation, the YouTube video, whatever, we can do that. And we can lightly bring it back. The interesting paradox is that when we allow ourselves to not be at 100%, we tend to have the capacity to be more focused. The rigidity makes it vulnerable and it kind of falls apart. But yeah, if we can be light, we can often keep it where we want to keep it more easily. Just reading quickly down through the comments, and then we'll bounce back up where we just were, and because I was kind of jumping around. And Stara said, how to accept certainty and also how do you accept uncertainty and also uncertainty about relapse? So even like with something like relapse, bringing the focus to what is it that we want to be doing. And if we're just focused on, oh no, there could be a problem, I've got to focus all my time and energy on preventing the possible problem, then we don't end up doing the things that we're actually going to enjoy. So really approaching it like that garden. What do you want to grow in the garden? What are the actions that are going to take you there? There are going to be uncertainties. Yeah, what if a storm comes and wrecks your entire garden? What if there's a drought? What if the rabbits think your garden is just for them? All of these things could happen. And can you trust yourself to handle them? So much of this is this unreasonable practice of trust in ourselves. If we want to have 100% on anything, it's just the commitment to support ourselves. 100% trust in ourselves to handle experiences. We're not saying that they're going to go well. There will be life. If we grow a garden, we do not know what's going to happen, but we are going to commit to the actions that take care of the garden, and we're going to trust ourselves to handle whatever happens. We're willing to have the experience and learn. And then, yeah, maybe this year's garden does get totally wrecked. And we're going to use that experience to garden next year. We're going to use that experience to connect with others. We're going to go and talk to people and be like, I planted an entire field of carrots and now I just have some really plump rabbits. What can I do? Start a rabbit farm. Just taking care of the rabbits. Actually, I already read that point from Je. I think, Je, you asked something down below. Okay, we'll get there. Random TV said, I know people say that their OCD is different, but mine actually is. Yours is. I'm going to tell you, you don't even have to tell me what it is. Yours is different. I have obsessions related to almost every single the most little things, and do you think it's still... So random, you didn't explain what it's about, but also it sounds like the most basic OCD theme, because it can really help to see that the OCD is about the compulsions. So the checking for reassurance, like that is like such a classic, and you can see it all over so many OCD forums. Someone saying, my thing is different, can I recover? And so it's so useful to see that the can I recover is the common compulsion. It is just the classic checking for reassurance, right? It's like any kind of health anxiety. Oh no, what if I have the special bad disease? Can I still recover? And so starting to see like that is the stuff to change. Recovery is going to be about cutting out compulsions like checking for reassurance online, and instead giving that time and energy to the things you want to do in life. So yeah, it's very, very normal. It's very changeable, but it is up to us to change it. Like in that moment, where the urge comes up and we tell ourselves, I have this terrible thing. I need to check if I can get rid of it. Starting to go, oh, this right now, this compulsion I'm doing, this is the thing to change. And then changing it. The angel share. Yeah, he said, I'm curious how you came up with the metaphor of mental fitness. It's really perfect for the skills and practices and capacities we're trying to build. Yeah, there wasn't some kind of big moment to me. It made just right from the beginning made sense that, oh, like, yeah, of course we have to build these capacities. Why would we have them? And just seeing that was so strange that we approach mental health so differently from physical fitness. Because again, yeah, if somebody doesn't run and so they have poor endurance, we just see that as natural. We would never say you have an endurance disorder. And so I think it's really about the history of mental health. For so long it was seen, there was this prejudice and there were these biases that it was, this small group of people who have something wrong with them, and that all other people have good mental health. And that just makes no sense. That is like saying only people who exercise have problems with fitness, and anybody else who doesn't exercise is in good physical shape. And we just know that's not true. And so I just had kind of ignored mental health, like many people, for my entire life until I had to look at it. And then when I did, I was just like, oh, this is stupid. Why in the world have we ever approached it this way? It makes no sense. Because we understand, just like with fitness, yeah, people have capacities, and if they're not actively building those capacities, then they don't have them. And that's not an illness. That's just having a human thought appliance. EL, you said someone said the best reason to meditate is no reason. Why did he say that? Because it's accurate. Yeah, throughout. So the thing you'll often hear in Zen communities is to meditate with no gaining idea. And that was something at the Zen, this was a Soto Zen retreat I was at most recently. One of the first Dharma talks on the first day was about, like we'll often talk about, not coming to it with a kind of getting approach, but instead making that switch to giving. If we approach meditation to get stuff, it's just kind of like physics. It just will create all sorts of problems for you. Oh, yeah, enjoy the search for natural. Yeah, so usually if you're looking for coffee, the terms you might see might be natural, honey, or unwashed. Like even when I got this coffee, I went to the coffee roaster, and on type, so it didn't say washed because it was in Spanish. I think it just said lavado, or yeah, it wouldn't have said lavado because that would be like I wash. Verbs, verbs are really difficult. Yeah, what do you think is the point of life? I don't think about it. Blooper 75, you said, so that relaxing coffee becomes nerve-wracking, resisting the urge to throw it away. Tips to make it relaxing again. There you're doing that getting. And so, yeah, I wouldn't, if it's whatever experience you're having can be the most relaxing. Right? What makes it not relaxing is us going into this, ooh, there's a problem here, I've got to fix it. Right? What if we have no problem with the present moment? Whatever feeling is there is the feeling that can be there. Starry said, what if you live with your values and continue doing what you want to do, but still low-key think about it? Yeah, so yeah, why would that be a problem? We're probably going to think about a lot of things, right? You said also, or anyone maybe, do you have a movie recommendation that portrays OCD accurately? Because I don't think in terms of OCD, and even, so we do talk about OCD a lot, but I approach, like these practices we talk about are about mental health and fitness for anybody. And so typically, I would say any movie, usually movies are a lot about compulsions and people, right, chasing after things and creating problems. So I'd say a lot of movies are very accurately depict mental health, actually. any movie where somebody tries to get something and it creates a lot of problems. So I wouldn't have, because also, yeah, I don't approach movies like kind of thinking about that. So I don't know if I've ever thought like, oh yeah, that they're really showing OCD well, because even the term I find isn't that helpful. Like, and by that I mean that if a movie was portraying OCD well, it wouldn't necessarily be obvious that the person has OCD. It would be clear that they have mental health struggles, because that label is just a kind of random label. Yay, yeah. He said, so our expectations of ourselves are causing these problems. I would say our expectations that this moment should be clean causes a lot of issues. There is a famous or well-known, important Soto Zen monk in the Japanese tradition called Keizan. And he was Dharma ancestor of Dogen and kind of continued the Soto lineage in Japan and really, made it what it is today, which is kind of one of the biggest Zen schools, most well known, really influenced a lot of what we think of as Zen in, say, North America and Europe as well. He was asked back in the day, this is like the 1300s, 1400s, what his teachings were. And what he said was that his teachings basically came down to find no fault with the present moment. Our struggles so much originate in just saying, this feeling shouldn't be here. How do I clean it away? And then we create all of that struggle for ourselves. So yeah, I wouldn't just say our expectations of ourselves, but our expectations of this moment. If we approach it with that idea that it's contaminated, then we create a lot of struggle for ourselves. Velociraptor, to the question of what's the point of life, brought up something really fantastic. Said we can choose the point of our lives. Isn't that amazing? And that's exactly it. Yeah, in this moment, we get to choose the direction. Just scrolling on down here, seeing how, and Jay, you said there at the bottom, you said, what do you define as the present moment? Like just like totally thinking physics here, like this moment. So all of the experiences of now. Yeah, you said, can fear of judgment cause depersonalization? I would say the reactions to a fear can create a lot of depersonalization. Jordan, good day to you. It's great to see you. Jordan said, sending you all love and encouragement in whatever place you're in or whatever place you're at in your journey. You are rock stars. These are big changes. Oh, Jordan, thank you so much. Thank you for your kind words. Thanks for the support to everybody. I hope you're having a great day and a wonderful weekend. Thanks for being here. Dream Hacker said, about sensory motor OCD, how do you overcome the core fear of noticing your breathing, swallowing, blinking forever? I dig into the core fear a bit more there. Usually there's a little bit like, it'd be like, well, what is the consequence of thinking about it forever? Like, what do you fear you're going to lose or it's going to interfere with? And the reason I bring that up, because then, it's about making space for feelings rather than trying to control it. Because if we go, I want to make sure living my life is free of interference, all the brain is doing is trying to help you with that. So it's going, okay, well, here are some things that could interfere. Let's make sure we get them right so that they're not going to interfere. But then we're trying to get things right and get certainty that just creates a lot of struggle. And then that struggle interferes with doing the things we want to do, which then creates this negative feedback loop, which only exacerbates the fear. So yeah, what are those things you're afraid it'll interfere with? Can you make space for uncomfortable feelings while doing those things? Dan, he said, is it useful to blame people for the way you are today? How would you go about something like this? I would go and then do the things I want to do. Yeah, if we are like we are not static. You are not a carved coffee mug. Uh, even if it's like very beautiful and painted and wonderful, you get to make choices. So this idea of like those people made me the way I am, I would really go after that. Is that true? Like you you not only have the awareness of that, but just like you wrote that question here, you're fully capable of making choices. So why not go, oh, okay, yeah, maybe I had some experiences. And that means that I think my initial reaction needs to be the following. Like maybe I learned that the thing you do with coffee cups is throw them across the room. But now I've learned that that becomes very expensive and I end up breaking a lot of coffee cups. So we don't get any rewards for just going, oh, those people shouldn't have told me to throw coffee cups across the room. Now I have to do it forever. No, like if you want to change that and you want to do something new and innovative, you're like, you know what? I can be a person that sips coffee from coffee mugs and I don't have to throw them across the room. Then you can do that. Lily, so do you feel like having faith helped you somehow on your journey? Do you mean faith like religious faith or faith, like just general faith? Because I'll often talk about being unreasonable. I would see the unreasonableness is often faith at first. We were talking about this recently on the mental fitness Discord server that so often you'll feel like you need to do the compulsion. We'll tell ourselves this situation is different. And there is this kind of faith in ourselves that we've seen that before. And so even though in that moment the fear feels so real, we're so convinced it's different, this time it's necessary, there's this faith and okay, but I know this is a thing my brain does. I know I've been down this path so many times before. I know actually the actions I want to commit to doing. And even though they feel wrong, they feel like I'm going to cause the end of the world right now by just being nice to myself or taking care of myself. I'm going to do that anyway. And that is a practice of faith, because in that moment, we are taking a step forward and it feels like we're stepping into a void, but we actually know there's a solid path ahead of us. The Last Road, yeah, thanks for sharing about Turtles All the Way Down. I haven't seen the movie or read the book either, but it is about OCD. Yeah, it's probably quite, it's got lots of fun factoids, tidbits in it, from what I understand. EL said, how can I incorporate living out of a state of being and acceptance while also still going after my values? Is this because I have always lived to get something and values about giving? Yeah, possibly. I'm not sure. Without more details, I don't know exactly how that might make sense in your situation, but it can just be, in general, really fun to explore giving. What if we approach life from a perspective of giving instead of getting? That still includes giving to ourselves, because often that's something we've neglected, but we've actually been chasing so much that we want to get from others that we'll often even really neglect ourselves, because we're like, no, after we get these things, then we're going to take care of ourselves, or then we're going to be deserving. And it can be useful to look at what you want to give to yourself too. Adilas said here, I found your book and videos so helpful for OCD, but also for life in general. And I think anyone can benefit from learning and practicing these skills. Yeah, thanks a lot, Velociraptor. I appreciate it. Yeah, it is intended as a book for people with brains. This, practice of chasing after feelings, trying to control feelings, trying to avoid experiences. It's something humans struggle with in general. Yeah, Harry, searching, having intrusive thoughts and then searching online, pretty easy way to create more stress. That tends to be how it goes. Everyone, we're coming up to an hour 40. Mud, hello. I hope you're having a good weekend. Yeah, we'll wrap things up soon. We might go up to 2 hours, but um, it's almost time for my second breakfast. Zia said, I live alone abroad. Sometimes it gets so lonely. I have no friends here, and every time I go out, I had to go lonely. How can I avoid this loneliness? So, uh, I live alone abroad and live alone abroad in many places often. I move around. And so it can be important to intentionally explore how we build social interaction in places, how we build community. You mentioned having no friends where you are. Would you like to make some friends where you are? It doesn't have to be a huge, like, there doesn't have to be some expectation of making a huge number of friends. What I do for myself is I say in each place I go to for like a chunk of time. So if I'm in a place for 2 or 3 months, I'm going to make one friend that I'm going to stay in touch with when I leave. But also recognizing that because I'm the one who's moving around or I'm the visitor in the place, the effort of maintaining that relationship is going to be on me. And that's important that I do that work because it's going to be useful to nourish those social interactions in my life. I also really intentionally practice being a good friend to myself. So making it okay, and not just okay, but fun and interesting to do things on my own and not limit what I do because I'm going, oh, well, there's not going to be somebody to do it with or something like that. And then also, another thing I do when I'm in each place, I always join something that is going to, I call it an anchor, but that is going to have some kind of social element to it. Usually, that's either a CrossFit gym or a school, like a language school. But there are many other kinds of things like that. So being intentional about joining community and building community, while at the same time exploring how to be a really good adventure buddy to ourselves. Dalton said, is it useful to just see recovery as doing actions while incorporating mindfulness? Because then you're not doing compulsions. I'm just trying to make recovery simple because I feel it's complicated. No, like I approach, like, you can even ditch recovery, the whole concept, like, be recovered already. And then just say, yeah, in life, would you like to do actions and be present with them? Yeah, we can do that. We can all do that now. We can all do that in the next moment. There's no special place to get to. In the next moment, we can identify actions that are valuable to us and we can do them and we can be present with them. We don't have to be doing a lot of time traveling. We don't have to be doing all sorts of controlling and judging. And that's really enjoyable and really useful. Yeah. Farzan said, I have a hard time with writing OCD. I'm wondering what tips you have so I can keep working with my everyday tasks. With writing OCD, and so if you mean, for instance, like writing something and then questioning if you wrote like a wrong thing or having to avoid words or write things over and over again or just avoiding writing, all the different things like that, identifying what you're going to do and then practicing doing it while those thoughts and feelings come up. Yeah, it is really useful. So starting to do those things, and there's going to be a fear there. There's going to be that fear of risking something and risking it. Yay. So what do you think about Stoicism? Do you think it is a robotic way to live your life? I would be curious what you're thinking of as Stoicism. Because again, like so many of these things just become like, and I've seen these, like it just becomes like a social media marketing gimmick. Like people say, oh, if you make a channel making videos and you say they're about stoicism, but you just kind of take random quotes and stuff like that. And so I think a lot of the times these philosophies, as they're understood through social media, maybe people have kind of skewed ideas of them because they are just being used as essentially memes and marketing. So yeah, instead of getting caught up in like saying like, oh, is stoicism a robotic way to live? Could be useful to explain like, what do you mean by that? Like what would be the actions of that robotic way of living? Brenda said, lately I've been getting back to old compulsions I didn't do anymore, and it's been a bit difficult not to be scared and blame myself all the time for it. Yeah, we can really get caught up in hating on ourselves, turning ourselves into a problem, one of our favorite compulsions. So yeah, sometimes we wander off the path in the wilderness. And if we wander off the path and we notice that, it's not useful to us to say, oh, you shouldn't get lost in the forest. I'm going to punish you by going deeper into the forest. No, we don't have to do that. Instead, if we notice we've wandered off the path, two things I'd look at. One, I'd be curious about, oh, why did I tell myself this was a good idea? Often we can see maybe some thoughts that we really like, but now we understand, oh, chasing after this stuff, that's actually a compulsion that takes me off the path. Okay, I'm going to remember that in the future. Now I know when I think, ooh, I wonder if there's an interesting salamander under that rock over there. Next time I'm going to notice that and go, oh, I am curious about that, but I don't have to go and do anything with it. And I'm going to continue on the path. But now that we've wandered off, it helps to lightly step back on the path. We're not going to get back on the path faster or more motivated by hating on ourselves. So instead, celebrating that awareness. Isn't it amazing that you can see that you're getting caught up in old patterns of behavior? Like, that's fantastic self-awareness. That's a great skill. And what do you want to do differently? And you can do that. How's everybody's coffee doing? Because my coffee is getting a little cold. So I will, we'll wrap things up soon, but we'll run through, let's see, we'll get through these questions though. Thank you everybody for asking so many, like, we've had a lot of questions today that are really interesting and getting at some, some important stuff, some deep stuff, some vulnerable stuff. So thank you everybody for coming by today and sharing. Health and fitness. I see you said, can you suggest a few healthy habits to get started with for transitioning from an extremely unhealthy lifestyle to a healthier one? And so health and fitness, I'd even be curious to, is this for you? Because I notice your username is health and fitness. And so I would just look at like what pressure and expectations are you putting on yourself there? So if it's for you and you have what you would judge as an extremely unhealthy lifestyle, but you're also creating kind of an identity around health and fitness, I would just worry about the pressure you're putting on yourself. Right? We like to be ourselves, and if we're kind of creating different personas, it just creates a lot of stress. So I would look at setting aside the idea of like, this is an extremely unhealthy lifestyle. I must have this healthy lifestyle because we're chasing this like clean experience again. But instead, taking a step back and just looking at something that's going to be useful to you this week. When I was doing the workshop last week at the university here, we did a version of the garden exercise. And we had a bit of a shorter time than I usually have if we're doing, a full day or half day workshop. So I had people just pick out the one plant that is going to be most beneficial to you next week. What's one thing that's going to be useful to you next week? It's starting to make it easy. We can make so much progress and change if we allow ourselves to gradually build. Too often we think we have to make some kind of extreme shift very quickly, and we just set ourselves up to fail. If, though, we allow ourselves to, like gradually just add in one useful support each week, even though it can seem small at first, if you then over the course of a year add in 50 something supports, that's such a massive change. So the tip that I would give to somebody wanting to make a huge leap from extremely unhealthy lifestyle to extremely healthy lifestyle is to go less extreme and just make one step next week and one step the week after and another step the week after that. Velociraptor, thank you so much for the donation. Thank you so much for the conversation. And Velociraptor, I really appreciate today. I've noticed the excellent, skillful support you've been sharing in the chat with people. So thank you so much. Thank you for being in this space, helping support it, and also participating and making it that space. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, EL, I see you mentioned what's the best beginner book for Zen, and I know Velociraptor, you mentioned Pieces Every Step down below. And so I would say there's maybe two that I would mention, and this is because in Zen, we kind of get two primary schools that we're most familiar with. There are more schools, but it can be really interesting to get those two perspectives right from the beginning. And so yeah, Pieces Every Step. That, so Thich Nhat Hanh's tradition, so the Plum Village tradition is in the Linji or Rinzai school and tradition of Zen. And then also another beginner book that I would recommend, and it's a collection of talks that were shared during a meditation retreat, is Master Sheng Yan's The Method of No Method. And I think I'm getting the title right, but I think if you look up Sheng Yan, Method of No Method, you'll find it. And so they are also, I would say, a really great introduction to the Soto Zen, or actually I forget exactly how to pronounce it in the Chinese term, but that school, because of course Master Sheng Yan is the Dharma Drum Mountain, his school is in Taiwan, so it's the Chan or Zen. Great explanation. It's kind of the most clearest, most simple explanation of the practice of silent illumination, or sitting, or just sitting meditation, which is a different approach than you'd see in the Rinzai or Linji school. So I would combine those two together. Harry said, I promise to one day come back and one of your brain tech support mentally healthy and happy. Oh, Harry, you can just come back anytime. We can all just be healthy and happy right now. I said, I love all the knowledge you provide here. You deal intrusive thoughts the best way. Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it. Thanks for being here. We can always be here with the brains we have right now. Dan, so you said, do you think OCD is a spectrum and everyone is on it to an extent? I would say mental health is a spectrum. All people are doing, and so with so many of the different diagnoses, they're just different ways we label how somebody is trying to manage uncertainty. Because if somebody has an uncertainty about being disliked, and so they do a prayer ritual, or they try to have a good thought before they get into a conversation, we might label them as having OCD. But if somebody also worries about what other people are going to think about them, and they're like, oh, I have this feeling I need to get rid of before I have a conversation, and they go and drink a bottle of whiskey, we might say that they have an alcohol addiction. Even in the mental health care system, they might approach those very differently. It used to be that actually you couldn't get treatment for something like OCD if you had an addiction, because there was this idea that they were different. But if we look at the reason why that person is doing the compulsion, they're both identical. They're both worried about, oh, people are going to judge me. I have this bad feeling. How do I get rid of this feeling? If somebody has that feeling, oh, this person is going to judge me. I have this bad feeling. How do I get rid of it? I'm going to hurt that person before they hurt me. We might say they have borderline personality disorder. But again, if we look at the uncertainty, it's the same across all of them. And all we're labeling is how they try to control it. So I would just look across the board at humans. Humans try to control uncertainty, and they do it in a bunch of ways that often are really unhealthy. Again, not to bring us back to politics, when people encounter difficult experiences, they often make choices that cause more disasters. Lily said, how do you choose a method between all the different ways to approach mental illness, different diagnoses, different advice from different people, psychologists, spiritual leaders? And so exactly, there's so many different approaches. Many different people are going to find many different things useful because we all live in a different context and we all have different goals in life. Not getting caught up on like, there's going to be this one way to do it. That's why, again, I find physical fitness a much better model. You're going to put together a toolkit of skills and exercises, concepts, and supports that work well for you and what you want to do. Somebody who wants to run marathons is going to find different exercises useful than somebody who wants to become a power lifter. And so watch out for anybody that says like, this is the way to do it. Because yeah, they may really believe that's the way to do it, but their goal might have been to be a marathon runner. And so they're like, this is how you get in shape. Well, no, that's how they explored building capacity. You may have very different goals or have different resources available to you. And you're going to find a different set of factors help you. And so really being open to building that, where do you want to go and what's going to help you get there? Emperor 3000, which is, that's quite a dynasty, 3000 generations. Whenever I'm scared of something, I can't stop ruminating because it feels so automatic. Can I just let the intrusive rumination be there? Sure. Yeah. There are so many different reasons why we might get caught up ruminating about something bad happening. And so one thing that could be useful to see that as the outcome of lots of other practices, not necessarily the problem to fix. Dinesh said, is intentionally choosing an emotion wrong? Is practicing a calm state of mind intentionally wrong? It's not necessarily wrong or anything like that, but I just think it might be very difficult. You might create a lot of stress for you because you're going to sometimes have other emotions. I find it more useful to have whatever emotion, right? To see like, I can be positive about having a bad emotion. It can be great. Like I'm having an experience of life. There's nothing wrong with that. And so I look more at that willingness and openness to have any emotion. Yeah, Velociraptor, you were mentioning, it helped me to see that OCD is just a label. It can be useful to some extent, but it's just a made up term. Yeah. Stara said, how to life according to your values in a high demanding career? 1 year long. So I wouldn't see a year long as too long. Values are especially useful when we're in something that's high demand because we don't have the time and capacity to trying to figure everything out. It's really useful to set values. So I would look at like essentially asking like, what are your work values? What are the values that are going to help simplify that year journey so that you're not having to go, oh, I've got to go figure this out right now. Oh, Velociraptor said, do you have any recommendations for books about writing? Yes, one of my favorite books about writing, but again, it takes an approach that covers lots of things, is Haruki Murakami's What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. It is, I think that's the title. I don't think it's What I Talk About When I Talk About Writing. I'm pretty sure it's What I Talk About When I Talk About Running. But a lot of it is about writing. Rendell, you said, how do you tell the difference between ruminating and processing emotions? Like sometimes it just feels like I need to reflect on something. Yeah, so I'd be curious about where you see the similarities. But what I always remind people with the idea of processing emotions is that the goal is not to make a processed cheese slice. And sometimes it seems like that's what we're doing. We're like, we're basically turning on all the machines in the factory and we're like, I've got to take these weird chemicals and turn them into like a square orange slice of plastic cheese. That is not the goal. But yeah, I'd be curious actually, like how you're seeing processing emotions and rumination as overlapping. And what if there are other ways to go about that? So yeah, you said when I think of stoicism, I think of not being carried away by your emotions. So yeah, not being carried away by emotions doesn't mean we don't have them. In fact, I would say the advantage of exploring all these skills is that I can have more emotions and bigger emotions. Because in the past, if our actions are so linked rigidly to emotions, it becomes very scary to have emotions and we try to control them because we think, oh, if I feel really bad, then I can't do anything. My life has to be on hold. I'm going to be devastated. It's going to affect me forever. Or if I'm really happy, also, oh, then I can't do anything. I have to go, if if I really like somebody, I have to go obsess about them. I have to spend all my time on them. If I'm really happy about something, I can't do the chores I need to do. When we can have emotions and we don't have those rigid equations attached to them, then we can actually step into an experience where we may commit very much to something, and we can say, yeah, I'm going to commit fully to this, and yeah, maybe it'll fail, and also when it fails, I'll feel really bad about that, and that's okay. So we can actually live life more. So I would say it's not robotic at all. It's quite the opposite, that when we're afraid of emotions, that's when we can get robotic, because we can't allow a good emotion and we can't allow a negative emotion. Z-Wolf, he said exposure versus unconditional self, life and other acceptance, which is better for recovery? Yeah, ZA asked, why not both? I'm not sure what, like even there, it's like, what do you mean by recovery? Uh, it's going to be about, yeah, what do you want to do in life? And what's going to help you do it? Oh, Brenda, have an amazing week. Velociraptor said, I usually have to work when you're doing these, so it's not super easy to contribute to the discussion. I'm excited to be contributing today. Oh, thanks a lot to Velociraptor. EL, no, not at all. Ronak said, thank you for the last few years, because my OCD is not my biggest problem anymore. I just have worse problems now. Oh, Ronak, that's life. Said, I mean, my OCD is pretty much under control these days. I might have come off as rude in the previous comment. Sorry about that. No, that's great. As the Velociraptor said, don't let the problem-solving monster get you. Health and fitness. You said, I read a response from ChatGPT that said uncertainty isn't always the answer or solution. So I don't know what that would mean, but if you're going to a large language model for advice, there might be other challenges to look at. Chaitanya said, how to change the beliefs that you can't survive if X doesn't happen because Y will happen. Example, losing your family members or partners. Yeah, this is where that commitment to having experiences in life comes in. Saying, okay, like I can see that thought, like, oh no, if this happens, I'll be devastated. That's quite often the case. I'll often talk about it as this feeling of getting obliterated. Like, oh, if this happens, I'm wrecked. I am finished. And then we commit to doing it. Saying, okay, if that experience happens, I commit to supporting myself through it. Maybe I'll have some difficult emotions. I want to learn how to have those. Elaine said, why do I fixate on certain thoughts to the point I can't focus on other things until I feel like I can understand my thought? Oh, and how can I make it stop? It's right there that if you're chasing this idea of I've got to understand my thought, it's just like hand washing compulsions. Then you just have to clean more and more. Like I'm trying to get this 100% understanding. And so the brain just won't give it to you. It loves the compulsions. So the more you chase that 100% feeling, the more it's going to feel wrong and you have to chase it. Nugas, you said, how to be with any pain in the body when our brain just goes to notice it and try to analyze it. It says that it's something serious, and if you don't get it checked, you'll be no more. But so you already see that that's what it's going to do. So that's a classic compulsion, right? The brain's usually going to say, if you don't fix this thing, the bad thing will happen. So do you want to explore like cutting out compulsions like that? Uh, it's going to be about having uncertainty and not doing the compulsion. But if you always do the compulsion as a reaction to stuff like that, then it's always going to throw it up. Yay! Thank you for joining. Thanks for the questions and thanks for the coffee wishes. I will enjoy. You enjoy your coffee as well. EL, you said, have you read or seen stuff by Rupert Spira? No, not familiar with him. Ronak, exactly. Thank you for the laughter. Nugaz, any thoughts on transcendental meditation? No, but there I bet, because based on the compulsions you were asking about, I'd be more curious. Why are you asking about transcendental meditation? There are some much more simple actions that you can practice already. Chris. So Chris, you have a question there about OCD behaviors and arousal, asking if it's been I don't think so. I think actually what you're looking at there are some compulsions right now. What if you don't need to chase anything about that? Because that connecting together you're doing, that is the compulsion. Just like if somebody's like engaging in any kind of magical thinking, getting caught up on coincidences, like that connecting together stuff, that is the compulsions. And then we're going to wrap up shortly here because Dan has asked a really important question. What are you planning to do after this live video? Have a second breakfast. It's one of the best breakfasts of the day. And I'm going to enjoy it because I had like breakfast before we hopped on the live, but now it's been like 2 hours. I have to go eat again or I'll waste away. So I'm going to go out and have a second breakfast. It's one of the best. I hope everybody else, no matter what time of day it is for you, remember it's never too late to have second breakfast. So please do enjoy your second breakfast wherever you are. Thank you, everybody, so much for coming by today. Thank you for sharing about your journeys. Thank you, everybody, for sharing support with each other. Again, as we were talking about at the start, like when there's difficult things in the world, how do we take action? What do we do? Well, we can do stuff like connecting with others, sharing supports with others, looking at our interactions today. How can we be kind to others? How can we give to others? How can we give to ourselves and support ourselves? Enjoy that, everybody. SP, hey, you're welcome. You're handling the scary part of recovery. Liz, you said, does stuff like the Enneagram feed into the compulsion to understand? It very much could. You could get into all sorts of magical thinking compulsions. Oh, Dan, you haven't heard of having second breakfast? It's amazing. Brenda, thank you so much. Blooper75. EK said, how to trust your therapist in recovery. I'm starting to see an OCD therapist. However, I'm finding it difficult to trust their treatment process, not because of them, but more because I doubt it. I could be great to talk about them, but also sharing specifics with other people, right? I can't know from that what kind of things are going on, but yeah, like talking specifically about the kind of exercises you're working on with people and finding support around that. But yeah, you can also talk about it with your therapist as well. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. I look forward to continuing the adventure with you. Have a great weekend.